Alright, well y'all get to ride around the patch with me today in the BD4. I'm going to do a little bit of chair flying and talk you through what we're doing as I'm practicing. So I got clearance, doing a rollout onto the runway here. As you notice, there's a bunch of rocks flying. I think there was some debris on the taxiway there, kind of interesting. And I'm using all available runway here, about to turn to line up. And we've got the stick back, and we're going to apply smooth full throttle. This is a tail dragger, so no abrupt changes to controls is always good. And we're looking for airspeed to be alive. As we hit 40 miles an hour, tail comes up, and then at about 80 miles an hour, she wants to fly. Pull back gently on the stick and starts to rise up. Now we're going to pitch for 110, maybe 100 miles an hour in the climb. And then once we're about 300 feet, 400 feet off the deck, we're going to pull manifold of pressure back to 25 inches, RPMs back to 2500. And coming up, you're going to see some birds here. Kind of got to do a little evasive maneuvers here to steer around the birds. Then we're going to lift the left wing and look for traffic and make the first turn to crosswind. Climb to about 1,400 feet, and we're leveling out really quickly in the crosswind, and by now we're reducing throttle, and now about to turn to the downwind right there. Pretty much reached our pattern altitude at this point, and now we're going to shoot for 90 miles an hour on the downwind. And then after I get the plane kind of situated here, I'm going to start doing my pre-landing checklist. So my flow is that I start with flaps. So it's flaps check up, down to the pitch set for the pattern, speed. Then I move up from there, fuel selectors on both, or mains. And then I scan from left to right on my switches. So it starts out, mags are on, boost pumps on, rotating beacons on. I'm doing this all from memory here because I can't see my panel. Then I get the throttle set, props in, mixtures set, check my breakers, go back to the left of the instrument panel, and then I check for master alternators on, check my engine instruments, oil temperature, pressure, make sure those are in the green. I'm looking for my CHTs and EGTs to all be good. Then I check my fuel gauge, make sure I've got plenty of fuel in both tanks. And then I'm looking for my alternator and amp meter, and I got my clearance, and then I can make my turn. Now we're turning to base here. Again, still doing 90 miles an hour. And I'm going to do a quick level out once we're on base. And then what we've been doing is practicing basically like sort of engine out every time. So what we've been doing is staying a little high, and then as we turn here, we've got the flaps down. We'll put the full flaps in on the turn to final, and then now we're adjusting our speed. We're going to go to 80 miles an hour and basically hold that all the way down. And we've been kind of working with this plane, trying to find the sweet spot. So we will probably adjust that speed down a little bit more, but right now we're holding 80 miles an hour, and obviously we're a little high, so that now we're bleeding off extra altitude with a slip here. Bringing her down, a little balloon there. And obviously my aim point wasn't the greatest, a little too far down the runway here. And at 80 miles an hour, she definitely floats a little bit. And just kind of milk it on down. We're going for 3-point, and we're trying to touch down the tail first, just ever so slightly. So there we go, now we're down. Flaps are up. And of course, if we were going to take off again, we do full throttle and tail back up right away. So that's just a quick little trip with me in the BD4 around the pattern. This has the IO360 in it. It's the electronic ignition on one of the ignition sides. All right, so thanks for joining me.